Hey, welcome back to the Bad Samaritan podcast. This is your host, Samuel and Chava. We
Where
back.
do we back? What
What's
up,
up,
baby?
baby? How you doing?
Feels great, man. I'm feeling good.
Man,
It's crazy.
10-3, number
Number
one
one.
in the NFC.
49ers, 10-3, number one in the NFC.
How we feeling, man? What's going on? I mean, it's been a few weeks. So for those of you at home and watching, we may or may not have lost our 3-episode skid.
Yeah, we lost.
Fitting that we lost our podcast on our 3 losses. And since then, now we back. We're gonna start here by talking about the Seahawks, and then we can go into some playoff picture questionings. But Chava, start me off. How are we feeling about sweeping the Seattle Seahawks
Man.
in this season? Back-to-back seasons.
Back-to-back
actually.
seasons. 5 straight wins against the Seahawks. Business as usual. I really enjoy how we play this team, although they're not who they used to be, back when we had the rivalry with Russ and the Legion of Boom and stuff. But it feels great to, give the business to Pete Carroll and really work them like that. This one was it was interesting. I didn't think we were gonna have that much difficulty in this as we did in the first half. It was cool how the Niners adapted and how we played throughout. And I'm really glad that we just once we decided as a team that we're gonna close them out, that we did. But
Yeah, you're
business as usual.
talking, total first downs. We are killing it. I think overall over 5,000 offensive yards this season. It's pretty impressive. Echoing what you're saying, I think it's nice to see that Kyle's scheme is just effective against Seattle and the Seahawks. I think ever since Dre Greenlaw had that stop in Seattle to send us to the playoffs that one season, Kyle's just been in his bag. It doesn't matter what they do. I thought this season I might have picked Seattle to win the NFC West.
Oh, wow.
I think I had them really. I thought their corners were going to be really good. I thought they were going to run the ball. They've had a lot of injuries. Gino regressed back to the journeyman that we knew he was. And it's just not really working out for them. It's okay, I'm cool with that. I think I am impressed by how the team has been able to overcome some of these kind of slower starts. I thought the Seattle defensive plan was pretty good.
I think you were solid.
Yeah, Purdy was, I think it was just having a hard time putting people open. Feel like there was some kind of Jimmy G-esque hospital passes over the middle.
Yeah, that first quarter was kind of rough.
And I think we were having a hard time finding our rhythm running the ball. I know that Elijah Mitchell being out was kind of a one thing to watch, and I didn't feel that JP got a lot of touches the way I feel like Eli typically gets. He mostly got the garbage time carries.
Yeah.
What did you see from Jimmy? Jimmy,
From
haha.
Jordan
Hey,
Mason?
shout out to Jimmy. But
Shout
what
out
did
to
you see
Jimmy,
from
man.
Brock in this offense in this game?
I really enjoyed, I think this is one of the games where, Brock again tallies against the system quarterback kind of view that he gets and all that kind of hate. Again, I was not happy in the first quarter with what we were doing, and especially those throws to Kittle, and it just didn't. It gave me flashbacks of later yesterday. I was like, man, this can't happen again. But this kid can really adapt to games. Moving around in the pocket was super crisp, making those nice throws to he had that nice throw to Ayuk, same throw to Kittle. He could really read a defensive really well. And even going back today, looking at the film, especially on those hospital passes, I could tell why he made them, and they weren't bad decisions. The Seattle, just their DBs are actually really good, and they, we need to give them credit to what they can do. On those, it's not like Jimmy G where Jimmy G should just throw in directly into linebackers' faces, and you're just like, dude, what are you doing? Um, Brock, although did throw those contested balls, they were in tight windows where, it was either 50-50, but leaning more towards our receivers. And I can't ask anything more of the kid. This kid's playing outstanding. I think this other win tallies onto his MVP-esque season. I don't know if anyone cares if he does, but he's throwing for 300 yards, dude. It's crazy. Like I don't
Yeah,
know.
you know, I think I think a couple weeks ago we were teasing about the whole like Brock Purdy elite thing, and like I'm gonna say this, you know, there's a stat that came out here in the last, I believe, 8 weeks, going back to October. I'm sorry, starting on October 1st, he has been. Oh no, my mistake. So back to October 23rd, I believe it's been 8 straight games with a completion percentage of 70% or greater. The last quarterback to do that was Joe Montana.
Yeah, like
And just for reference, the week before that was a 44% completion percentage, and that was against the Browns, where we had lost Trent Brown, Debo, and C-Mac was slipping all over the field.
yeah,
But then prior to those 2 weeks against the Cowboys, that's another 70.8%, and then versus the Cardinals, that's a 95.2% completion rate. So if we would have kept it together with the Browns and played a clean game, that potentially could have been over 10 weeks of a completion percentage of over 70%. Like, what does that mean? What does that matter? I mean, in these games over the last few weeks,
it
Brock
matters.
has had 368 yards, 314, 209, 333, 296,
Hmm.
375, 272. Like, these are all pretty sexy stats. All right. He's thrown for multiple touchdowns. And, you know, even if we're comparing, you know, his last two Seattle games, it's like he literally gets better,
Yep.
you know, and I think he's really taking it upon himself to like improve as a quarterback, and it just shows in the film and like what he's doing, man. He's getting the ball out really quick. He's throwing the ball with
And
anticipation,
accuracy.
and you know, this offensive line is one of the lowest graded pass blocking offensive line, and Brock Purdy is doing all this work in spite of them. He's
Yep.
getting the ball out quick, throwing his impatient, switching his hips, throwing with his feet under him.
Hmm.
You know, it's really impressive to watch. It feels like we have a franchise quarterback if he can stay
Yeah.
healthy, and I honestly haven't felt this way like in a
Ever.
while. You know, like I don't. I think for a bit, like I thought Alex Smith could do it. I just it just feels like he really like he goes through progressions, and he hits the player that's open. And it sounds simple enough, but like, man, like so many quarterbacks that we've had over the last decade
They
just
couldn't
can't
do
seem
it.
to do that. You
Yeah,
know,
and a lot of quarterbacks in the league can't do that. I
right?
feel the same way that you have this feeling where like, dang, we have a franchise quarterback. Like, this is a feeling I've never felt. And the more Brock Purdy starts dropping stats like Joe Montana, I feel this is almost a little image, like a mirror of that Joe Montana team. And I don't like when people are like, no, Joe Montana's the GOAT, yada yada yada. I'm like, you guys forget like this guy also had like Hall of Famers on his team. Roger Craig, Jerry Rice, Dwight Clark, like these like look at this team and look at that team, and it's not as
Yeah, this team just doesn't have the hardware,
it
you
just
know. So I think it's like I
yeah.
think that's the point, you know. Like this team needs to win. I think this team is good enough to win. I think when we're healthy, we're the best team in the league.
Yep.
You know, let's put Seattle aside. We've swept them. We've swept them back to back seasons. Shout out to them for getting swept by us.
Thanks, man.
You know, let's pivot the conversation really quick. And I want you to start talking about the defense. And feel free to go back about into Seattle, but also tell me about what you saw with the defense in the last couple weeks, specifically about this team that that said that we were soft, and that we weren't gonna come into their building and beat them. And the team that I'm talking about is the fifth seed Philadelphia Eagles, who are now 10-3, having just lost to the Dallas Cowboys last night in back-to-back losses. The fraudulent
The
Philadelphia
fraudulent Philadelphia
Eagles.
Eagles, man.
Tell me about how this defense is feeling, and tell me about what being number one in the NFC means over these Philly Eagles and these NFC East opponents.
So what? Even all right. Let's talk. Let me talk about the defense against Philly first. And yeah, man. It was as advertised. I believe. You know, our defensive line really played. They played a different game against Jalen Hurts. Would really neutralize him, which was which is the league hasn't seen yet. The league's only like, oh, Jalen's the guy who can come back. Jalen's the guy who's like you can never count him out. And when you just make that team one dimensional by basically getting coverage sacks against that trash offensive scheme, it's unstoppable. We stop the run amazingly. No one's running up our gut. They still Jalen still threw it underneath to AJ and to Devontae Smith, but you know what? Our defense was like, yeah, that's all you can do, and that's all we're gonna give you. But everything else, shut down, shut down, shut down. eons to throw the ball. Nobody was open. He had to run into freaking Kalia Davis and get sacks. You know, I had a really nice time last week. You know, conversating with Philly fans because I don't. I had this conversation with you too. I was like, I don't think these fans are like smart or understand football the way a lot of us Niner fans do. You know, they're very passionate and they're very they're very hoorah hoorah, and they think they're really tough. But when a team comes like us and smacks them in the mouth in their house, and then drops 40 on them and doesn't let them score, like we're like there's nothing to be there's nothing that you can say. It's undoubtable. Like you drop
Uh,
20 points.
Yeah, these Niners are undeniable.
Undeniable.
I think it's just agreed. You know, I think it's always fun. I think most 49er fans, most Bay Area fans are pretty sports savvy. We know it don't mean a thing unless we get that ring.
Nothing.
This roster is better. I think we were all saying the same thing that
Coaching's better.
if Brock doesn't blow it his elbow out, then we win that game. Like
Yeah,
I
Debo
firmly
said it.
believe it. And it doesn't take anything away from them. Philadelphia, like they did what they were supposed to
Sure,
do.
they're reigning champs.
They took our quarterback out of the game. That's what you're supposed to do. So hats off to them. Like not taking away from them.
That's last year though.
Exactly. Well, and also they still lost the Super Bowl, so
Yep.
it really don't mean anything.
It doesn't mean nothing.
The NFC championships don't mean nothing. We don't hang that stuff. We hang up. We hang up
Yeah.
Lombardi's.
Yeah, man, that's in the janitor's closet. That trophy, I don't even know where it is in Levi's.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like, you know what, man, shouts out to them. It's been really fun the last couple of weeks, just drinking some Philly tears. All the memes of
Cry
cry equals
equals cry.
cry, and I'm loving it. And I think one of the key things that Bosa said, he was talking about laying the blueprint, right? Is playing contain on Jalen. Maybe not so much just keeping in the pocket, but preventing his escapes,
Hmm.
right? Minimizing his effectiveness with his feet. And I'll be honest with you, bro. Like our secondary, I don't think it's all class, like all
No,
pro.
there's not all
Like
pro like the Eagles or the
yeah,
Cowboys.
I think Charvarius is maybe all pro, but I mean we've lost Hufanga. Gibson's a little older. Lenore and
And
Avery Thomas.
and
They're trying to
Oliver, they're
find
young.
their positions. To me,
Yeah,
Oliver, I think he has like he hasn't really found himself in this offense yet. I think he
in the
gets
defense.
beat
Yeah,
pretty often. I think he's good at crashing on on outside flat zones or runs.
yeah.
But like my point being is like this secondary to me is a weakness on our defense compared to the linebacking core and the defensive line, especially in a game where Dre Greenlaw gets kicked out for supposedly like a
Poke.
late
Uh,
suplex or something that was in bounds, and then getting into the altercation with the security guard. And
yeah, man.
despite those things, like we basically shut them out. That touchdown they got was a gimme by the refs, and and the Cowboys proved us right. They basically did harass Jalen the entire time.
The entire game.
And I think the first defense, the score in the half was a defensive score.
Hmm.
And so this Philadelphia Eagle man, like I love that they're getting a taste of this. These back to back L's. We had to face our little 3-game losing streak. I was really worried that that skid was going to cost us, but
Yeah.
everything's ahead of us at this point. Coming out of the Seattle game, however, we do have a couple injuries. I believe Hargrave has a hamstring. We got to check in what's going on with Charvarius.
Armstead
Um,
as well. He's out.
yeah, Armstead has the plantar
Mhm.
fasciitis, so I think that's just kind of like a rest and see kind of thing.
Hmm.
But the reinforcements, man, Kinlaw, bro,
Kinlaw, man.
he's earning that check, man. He's still on the thing,
Hey,
and Clyde Davis, and so I'm liking what I'm seeing from the D
it
tackles.
was off air, and off air I compared Kinlaw to the late not so great Solomon Thomas, and these past couple of games, Kinlaw has definitely shut me up and proved me wrong on his play. He's not who I wanted him to be, and as a replacement of DeForest Buckner, but again. Like Nick Bosa said this a couple weeks ago. We're not always trying to set the sack record, and he's kind of flourished in the role that he's been playing as a patient and physical defensive tackle. He's pressuring. He pressured the interior line last game amazingly, as well as the Eagles. Going back to you were talking about those 3 losses. Those 3 losses were tough, and they didn't cost us as crucially as they think they did. But I think we were talking about this again. It's super necessary. I think it was necessary to expose the defense and the offense of like where our holes were, and that bye week couldn't have been in a perfect spot. We lose those 3 games, and we're like, what just happened, man? We go into bye week, we come back, and we basically clean slate, and we
Yeah,
fix these holes.
that must have been a long bye week for these guys, man. I know in the podcast that we lost, we were talking about like, yo, like why isn't Wilkes making these adjustments? Like, how is he not seeing this? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think we were really frustrated in how we were seeing a lack of adjustment and seeing the ongoing issues like come up in the Vikings and the Browns and in the Bengals games, and you're like, yo, like why are we pressing man? Like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, like I'm not some savant. Like quickly realized that these guys are a lot smarter than me,
Yeah.
and I think they're finding their way out there. But it's just frustrating when this defense was at a championship level, and then we definitely saw them regress.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, after these last couple weeks, man, like we're finding ourselves again. Our corners are playing really tough. I think DK still a great like receiver, and
Diamador Lenore, man.
John
Demo.
Lenore was like doing a great job. I mean, Charvarius was out on the first play. He
Yeah.
he he pulled whatever he pulled, and he was out.
Yeah, he tweaked
And
his little hip, and then those secondary, those junior guys stepped up, bro. Demo, I last last year we were hating on him. I remember seeing a lot of tweets like, "Yo, send this guy to Baghdad. We don't need this guy on our team." I'm not gonna lie, I felt some sort of the same sentiment. But now looking at it through this game and looking at how he's been playing in these last since the bye in these last 4 weeks, he's a very physical corner. You know, he really gets his hands in, really gets really tries to lay the wood when he can. Like we saw what he did to Slim Reaper, Slim Shady, Devontae Smith. And he's a very physical corner, and I was like, oh, okay, you're not who Charvarius Ward is. You're not who Richard Sherman was. But Demo, shout out to you, man. I hope you keep flourishing. I hope you keep growing. And I hope you can pass down your knowledge and your expertise to these younger guys that are coming in too,
yeah,
because
man,
you
that
locked down DK. It was impressive.
it was, man. He's a young guy, 5'10", 200 pounds. He's not the biggest dude, but he was playing like a big boy. I know that Kyle's probably not gonna be happy about the him getting involved with DK at the end of the game. I think there was some gamemanship there, but great play by him, and I'm looking forward to seeing him and what the rest of the secondary does in the second half of the season, which leads us into the final stretch of the season. So we have a bit of a gauntlet coming up. We have
We have a couple of tough opponents.
hey man, what Brian would always say, bro. There's always a
Trap
trap game in
games.
here.
Yeah,
You know
these
what
are
I'm
some
saying?
trap games.
Up next, we got the Cardinals, who
Trap.
we'll be seeing for the first time with Kyler Murray this season, right?
Yeah,
We got the Ravens on Christmas Day,
which will be tough.
and we got the Commanders,
Which will be a trap game.
and then we got the Rams.
Which will be, I think, actually a high scoring game. After seeing how the Rams and the Ravens battled it out in overtime
This past week, yo.
this past week, I was like, whoa! I wasn't aware that the Rams are kind of like revitalized. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they did score on us pretty good. I feel like they're one of the teams who did put numbers on us. If I'm looking right here at week 2, we scored 30 on a win, but they dropped 23. They're a high power offense. If they have Cup, if they have Puka, if they have these guys that are still still making plays, it'll be tough. Our defense, I will admit, wasn't as good as it is now. Wasn't as hot, but I could see the Rams trying to mess up our number 1 seed, or of course, like do what they can to get into the dance. Um,
Exactly. I think for context, the teams that are on the bubble right now are the Rams and the Seahawks.
and they're on the top,
So
right? They're on the top of the bubble.
yeah, so right now 6 and 7 seed are the Vikings and the Packers. That's likely to change because I think the Vikings and the Packers still have to play each other. The NFC South is a mess, but one of them has to get in anyways. And so
Probably
I
the
think
Saints.
I think the Rams in that last week might be tough. Depending on what the schedule looks like. But what I want to know from you, what are you looking to see over these next couple weeks? I know for me it's just about getting healthy, but what are you trying to see? I definitely don't want us to lose out because I still think that we have to win out to keep that first seed. But what are you seeing in this last month of
And
regular
last month
season
of football, look, I want to treat this last month of football not. I don't. I'm not saying preseason, or I'm not saying you know put in Sam Darnold or whatever. But I want to see us win with the lowest intensity that we can and still be able to win. I liked what we've been doing against these like the Eagles and the Seahawks, where we're just we're airing it out. We're still running really hard, but I think we need to see like what happens when the game gets long and we can't front run teams, because I feel like we're a team who is like once we get ahead early, we can put them away, and that's cool. But there's gonna be situations where our team's gonna be put in where that's not gonna be the case, and I believe like we'll see that against the Ravens, and maybe we'll even see that against the Rams or Washington with those good defenses. Um, so I want to see us to be able to battle into a game. I'm not saying like let's give up a lead or something because like no, but I want to see us run the ball more. I want to see us really churn and milk
Control the
clock
game.
and
Yeah.
control like dominate and control a game managerially. You know,
Right.
instead of hey let's get the ball into the playmakers' hands and like let them explode
Yeah.
because those explosions are great, but they're called explosions and catastrophes could happen.
It's been tough, man. Like I hear what you're saying, and I just Kyle just built a different team this season.
Yeah.
Kyle's team, he said, you know what? I'm tired of losing these close games. I'm tired of them not calling, holding on Bosa in the Super Bowl. I'm tired of them not checking people, and I'm tired of not being able to protect my quarterback from the guard. So I'm just gonna drop 30, 40 points on everybody, and I'm gonna leave zero doubt. You know,
Maybe. And
and it's killing me because I agree with you. I'm like, hey, like why aren't we running the ball? Why aren't we running the ball? And the next thing I know, Kyle's throwing it for 40 yards,
yeah,
and I'm just like, oh. And
Kyle
then
was
we're running
like,
for 70 yards, and I'm just like, I don't know football anymore. I don't know anything.
I don't know
I don't know
anything.
anything. Kyle is just he's playing a different game, and I hear you though. I think the test with I think what's crazy about him. I think the last couple games with the Ravens and the Commanders, those are gonna be good defenses. But then our division opponents always play us tough, you
They
know.
always play us tough. The
And
Rams
so
and the Seahawks play
so
us tough.
and so these are going to be tough games, man. And so I hope he can stay healthy. I
Yeah,
think
I,
I want to say, oh, I want us to be balanced, but I feel like we are a pretty balanced
we are a
team.
pretty balanced team.
It just we're just not being led by our run. Now our
Mm-mm.
pass is setting up the run, and I
Yeah,
think it's just I feel like it's foreign territory for us in like the last decade.
yeah.
And I
And
think
Brock can
it's
handle it, I guess. But
yeah, it's just crazy, man. It's crazy.
I'm really frustrated, especially in this last game. I didn't get to see enough Jordan Mason, especially
Agreed.
with Eli Mitchell hurt. We gave him a carry for 3 yards and a tutty. This guy's a beast. We obviously we knew he was gonna get in. But I want to keep my guys fresh. Like especially
Yeah.
against the Cardinals and especially against the Commanders, which they're not good teams. They're not. And I'm not saying we can't lose to them because we've obviously lost to bad teams before.
Right.
But I want to keep our guys fresh, and I want to see it with our depth. If our depth is good enough to win,
Yeah.
especially like
I agree, man.
because if our depth isn't enough to win, then we have the same issue of hey, we're one injury away from
Yeah, yeah.
catastrophe.
I think what I would hate to see is the Browns game happen in the Super Bowl.
Exactly. That's
And
exactly
and
what
I
I'm
feel
talking
like
about.
what kind of hurts me about Kyle is like I've seen a little bit with the receivers. He's putting like Conley in and giving him a chance to get
Block
some
and
money.
stuff. Yeah.
But I'm like, yo, bro, like we're up by 2 scores. Like take CMC out.
Take
Let me
CMC
see what
out.
GMP got. Let me see
Yes.
what JP Mason's got.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Run my boy. Like let me see what he's got. Let me see if he can get open. Let me see if he can sell a play action. Let me see if he can pass
Take Bosa
block.
out. Take Chase Young out. Like
Yeah, let me see
let me
these
see Drake
guys.
Jackson.
Yeah,
Let me see.
let me see what these guys got because I
Mhm.
think we need to know before we have to find out, you know?
Exactly.
And it's like and if we know or maybe they feel like they know based on practice, then I'm like, okay, you know? And maybe that's what the answer is, right? Like we don't know what's happening between Sundays. You don't know what we're seeing on the practice field. It could be that they saw that, right? Like
Mhm.
you bring up Jay Jackson, and I'm assuming that, with DJ, like I'm sure that it's basically like, yo, like we're not saying we want. We're bringing in Grandy in. We're bringing in Chase. We're bringing these guys because we're not getting the production out of you or you're hurt, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, hey, maybe that's speaking for itself. But I
guess.
just I don't want to be in a situation where we get to this great point. Let's say we went out and then someone gets hurt in the playoffs and we can't overcome it.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't need that.
whatever.
I'm okay with
it
giving
is
up
what
the
it
first
is.
seed if we're all healthy. That's my thing. Like
Right.
I think we can try. I think we play good again on the road. We saw that in the link. And I
Yeah.
was like, wow, okay,
It's the next step, bro. Because we're seeing everybody get a touchdown.
yeah.
Ayuk,
Ayuk,
Debo,
Juice.
CMC, everyone's getting a touch. Everyone's getting a look. So now the thing is like, okay, I think what we saw with the Eagles, right, with JJ, Joanne Jennings, like getting that tutty.
Yep.
Like, let me see more of that.
Yeah.
Let me see JP get in
Yeah,
there.
let me see
get
Ronnie
everyone.
Bell. Like
Yeah,
give
let
Ronnie
me-
Bell his touches and see
Mhm.
if he really is bad or good.
Yeah. Let's really put him out there. Let's feature him. You
Yep.
know, like, hey, thanks, Debo. All right, let you set up the fourth.
Yep.
Okay, hey, Ayuk, we already know what you got, bro. Like,
Yeah, 1,000 yarder.
you want to drop
You're the
whatever,
guy.
you're gonna drop a pass here and there or get stripped, and you're gonna like piss me off. But let me see what Ronnie's got. Let me see what Conley's got. Let me see what JJ's got. Let me see how how much of a fall off this is, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and and let's go from there,
Yep.
right? Like,
Exactly.
and I feel
I
I
wa-
get it. You want the best players on the field at all time, but when we're already winning, I think it's time for us to see some other things, you know.
exactly, man.
And maybe they're running him in practice and it's gonna save them for a big game, but I don't know. I just want to see it, you know.
And I think I think it's a valid response. I do truly think if Ayuk doesn't fumble that ball, or if Brock Purdy throws it to Kittle instead of him, and we score a touchdown, um,
Right.
I think they get sat, and then we see more of Jordan Mason and stuff. Because
Agreed.
I mean, 28-16, it is close, but we were basically we were on them. You know,
It didn't feel close.
it didn't feel close, and DK was out of the game, so it was like the threats are gone. And I'm not saying take the foot off the gas.
Yep.
I'm just saying, hey,
We've been
can
having
we-
the
can we
same
swap the car,
discussion
you
all
know?
season. I just change the percentages,
Just
you know.
just swap the
Like
car.
it is
Like
a
we got the
portfolio
Ferrari.
investment. Like let me get a little bit more of Mason,
Yeah.
right? Let me pull back a little bit of CMC. My boy, like he's a beast. You know
Yes,
what I'm saying? Like,
I
and
get
if
it.
you want to run CMC every play in the Super Bowl, I'm not gonna be mad.
No, yeah, no,
you
no, no, no.
know
me
what I'm
neither.
saying? I'm just saying let's just not do that
Till we get there.
till we get there. That's all I'm
Let's
saying.
get there with all the horses in the stable ready.
Yeah. And
like,
if you
ready
want
to
to
go.
if you want to spam Debo and CMC the way we did them versus the Packers in that playoff game
Yes.
at Lambeau,
Yes.
I am not going to complain.
No.
All
I'm not
I
gonna
am saying
complain in
is
the
like it
championship
is a
game.
regular season game.
Yep.
We got boys that are healthy in the back, and I think it's worthwhile for us to see what we have in them. You
Mhm.
know, so if next season we're talking about like, hey,
We need to
are
develop
we going to
you.
put Eli on vet minimum or like stash him? You
Or
know,
we're
or
gonna
we going to
move
let him
on.
walk?
Yeah.
You know, what do we got in JP? You want to know that, you know.
Yeah.
And
you
like I
want
said,
those-
maybe they do know that based off practice, but it's like I also don't think that's fair. Like you gotta let a guy have some game speed, you know?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of pressure. It's it's not like you're not even letting him prove himself to the world, you know.
Yeah.
And even if like let's say we don't keep JP in, and I think a cool team. I mean, our team is known for making people look good and getting them jobs. And so, how about we just make everybody look good? Everybody.
Exactly, because I think it also feeds to I think what you're hinting at is like our draft strategy, right?
Exactly.
It's like, yo, we let free agents walk because we get compensatory picks, right?
Yes.
We grow head coaches.
Yes.
You know, we have how many other head coaches in the league right now?
Like
3,
three. Yeah.
right? And and GMs, things that we all get picks for, that we trade for, and then use them on players that end up making big plays in games.
Yes.
And so it's like, yeah, like I'm just saying, let's spend some time in these games where we have already sealed things up
Mm-hmm.
to showcase some of these other guys,
Yeah.
because I think we might come a chance where we might need them, and I think it also just creates more things for defenses to prepare for, right?
Of course.
If they see that there's some tendencies with JP Mason, he's doing all this and that. Like, let's just see, how interchangeable these people are, right? We're gonna get to a point where we won't be able to keep all these guys.
And
But I mean, at
we've
this
done it
point, we're
before.
nitpicking,
Yeah,
But
we're
it's like,
nitpicking. We have good problems to be complaining about, but it's not. I mean, to be honest, there's no stone that shouldn't be unturned in this team because we've lost in fantastical fashions in different ways across for the past 5 years since Harbaugh, since I was a kid and we were going to NFC championships and we lost in the Super Bowl.
bro, because
So-
I want to say that loss that we had to the Rams that sent them to the Super Bowl where they won it.
That's
I'm
our
pretty
ring.
sure Jermichael Hasty was the running back blocking in
Yeah.
the backfield for Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
And this is my point. It's like, can JP Morgan pass protect? Can Eli Mitchell pass protect to that level? Because we don't have great right guard or right side of the ball play.
Mm-mm.
So Chris Jones or these big boys on the tackle side, they're gonna bust through these guards,
Yep.
and we need to figure out if our running backs back there can pass block, because Kyle has chosen philosophically to draft and develop undersized linemen that are skilled and cheaper at run blocking,
Yeah.
right? And he's choosing to scheme and quick out pass to get that time for the quarterback to avoid sacks. But when it comes down to it, to the Super Bowl, to the playoff, to the fourth quarter of championship games where we've lost, a la Aaron Donald, a la Chris Jones, it's always busting through the right guard side play.
Yep.
And if our running back doesn't pass protect, right, then what are we doing? And even then, too, it's like, why isn't it just juice check back there? My boy can pass block.
Yeah,
you know
he
what I'm saying? And so that's kind of what I'm getting at. It's just like, I just don't want to.
We're not solving the problem. It's the same thing we've spoken to the beginning of this podcast when we started. Like the Niners aren't solving the problems that are withholding them from winning.
No.
They're just they're just overweighing their positives to overweigh those chances. They're changing the probability,
Yep. Yep.
and so you're just like, all right, like if that's what you're gonna do, then
It's
don't know.
it's again, it's a different philosophy, right? I think
Yeah.
in career, like in your job, like in academics, it's just like, oh, like it's the decision or the trade off between working on your weaknesses or doubling down on your strengths.
doubling down, yeah.
And the Niners have exponentially doubled down on their strengths.
But we
Like I
squared
can't
our strengths.
like we are dropping an average of 30 something points every game.
Mm-hmm.
With Jimmy, we were lucky to touch 30 like
20.
maybe twice or 3 times a season.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong. Feel free to drop some sexy stats for me. But the reality is like Kyle's basically saying, nope, we're in an offensive league. I try to get y'all Trey Lance so we could bomb it out and have a big arm and have some explosives and keep defenses on their heels and
it didn't work.
and run the ball. And he failed. And then they got Brock Purdy, who was basically like, oh, but I can just do everything else perfectly. And then when things are there downfield, then I'll take it. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that's nasty.
It's disgusting.
This team is it's the best.
It's the best.
It is
Kyle
the
Shanahan
best. Straight
teams
up,
that he's
it's
that
the
he's
best.
ever had.
I mean, I think it's only not better than his Matt Ryan Falcons team because
Nah.
Matt Ryan was the MVP.
Well-
and it was clear.
Well,
But I mean,
is it?
But I mean, the season's not over
The
yet.
season's not over yet. We got what? 4 more games left. When is that? When is MVP?
Let's finish off on this.
I don't know.
Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, Mr. Not Elite. Is he your MVP?
He's mine. I don't know. I don't know who else you put up there.
I think the clear discussion to me is Christian McCaffrey, Dakota Prescott,
Christian
Tyreek
McCaffrey's
Hill,
not MVP.
and Brock Purdy.
Look up MVP rankings. I think it's Purdy, Dak, Tyreek, and Tua.
Yeah, but here's the thing with the MVP the MVP rankings.
It's a quarterback. It's gonna be a quarterback.
Exactly.
It's gonna be.
I
a
think that's
quarterback.
part of the problem. I think if we're both honest, I think we give it to Tyreek. I don't see how you don't.
What is he dropping, a 3,000 yard season or something?
I think
2,000?
he's gonna be close to 2,000.
Yeah, it's
And
crazy.
I think Dakota Prescott actually has a strong case.
He has a strong case against Brock Purdy.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
And that's cool. I'm happy for him. And I just don't think Brock is gonna win it because of all of the supporting cast.
I don't think so. I think Brock has a better chance of winning the MVP because he's beaten more teams above 500.
Yeah.
This Eagles team is, I think, the first team that Dakota's beat that are over 500. I think, or maybe the second. So it was cool watching it last night, seeing the Cowboys defense, but it was also the Cowboys defense like really carrying that game.
Exactly.
And sure, you can say the same thing for Brock Purdy, where like, well, it's your guys' defense that are carrying it, but he's actually beating these other defenses that are great. And this was with my when maybe 2 weeks ago when Jalen Hurts was in the MVP conversation, which I doubt he's in anymore.
He shouldn't be.
He shouldn't be. But if he is, my thing against the Philadelphia Eagles is that they were way too cocky for beating up teams that had no defense.
They lost to the Jets.
But the Jets have a great defense.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
And so you're like, the Jets should have showed you that you can't beat a decent or a B+ defense. You shouldn't be talking this bull junk against the best defense in the league.
Right. And especially because I think MVP is definitely like an offensive skill
it's
player award.
Yeah, of course.
So it's like what you do against the best defenses in the league, like say a lot. And so I think what helps Brock is that like Dakota also got smashed on by the Niners.
Yep.
And that his, like how you mentioned, prior to that game against Philly,
That should have been
they
a
were
tight
0-2
game.
against teams with a winning record.
That should have been a tight game. That should have, if Dakota is the MVP, that Cowboys game against us should have been a close game, and he should have maybe lost. He should have lost by a field goal.
He should have kept them in it.
He should have kept him in it. But guess what?
He
happened?
looked lost.
Guess what happened? He just melted.
And I think what I think that loss hurts double because they've lost to us the same way.
Yeah.
And even worse, like he didn't get better, right?
No.
But I mean, at the same time, like, hey, like the thing is, like, we might play them in the playoffs, but I think MVP is decided before that starts.
It is.
It's like, I don't know. I feel like the decision on Dakota over Purdy is gonna be like done by then. I think Purdy gets hurt the way that Tua gets hurt with like is it really Tua or is it Tyreek? You know,
Debo, you're saying? Or supporting cast?
yeah, just the supporting
But
cast
what do you
argument
mean?
for
Dakota
Purdy.
has an amazing supporting cast too. CD, those receivers.
Right,
Like,
right. I'm not saying that he doesn't, but I'm just saying that like, hey, he's on the Dallas Cowboys. That's like America's team. Like a lot of this is also a popularity
I
contest.
feel it, yeah.
So I
And he's
just
Walter Payton man of the year.
yeah, he's a good dude. And I don't hate on him. You know, we
Yeah.
we keep beating them. So like, I have no beef against the Cowboys.
Yeah.
You know, I think you know, if we play them in the playoffs, you know, we have to take them seriously. They're a team that could beat us if we
Yeah, they are.
don't if we take them slipping. So like, I'm not gonna talk smack on them, but you know, when they keep looking up to us and we beat them at their house, we beat them at our house. I mean, we could pay them. We can play them in the Super Bowl, which is
Put 'em
never
in
gonna
Fox,
happen. But
Super
we
Bowl
would beat them
Fox.
there. You know, we put them in the phone booth. We'll beat them up there too.
Yeah.
Like we own this team. It's just is what it is. And I think you know exactly what he was supposed to do and beat the Philadelphia Eagles. But maybe you could say that he should have beat them the first time too, right?
Sure.
So it's like, I don't know. It's clear to me that Jalen's out of that conversation.
Yeah.
He didn't do anything impressive to me.
No.
So I'm curious to see how that's gonna go. I guess you could have Mahomes in there again.
Can you?
But I
After
mean,
this
like
loss?
they've taken a lot of losses and he's not overcoming them.
Nope.
I think we had this whole conversation about the offside thing, and I'm like, you know what, man, like, I don't remember things like this happening to Peyton Manning. Like
Yeah. Definitely.
and Peyton, and I
Or
always
Tom.
bring up Peyton Manning because like he was one of those great quarterbacks that sometimes had teams that had like random receivers like Austin Collie or something. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm like, if you were a great quarterback, if you are that guy, you bring these guys over and you coach them up, right? Which to me is like also a con against the Brock Purdy thing because he's got some Pro Bowlers around him. But I mean, like, yo, it's not his fault that he's averaging dang near 10 yards a pass. You know what I'm saying? Like the numbers are there; they speak for themselves. And I'm just really curious to see how this last month of football pans out, and who they decide and how they decide to give the
most
MVP
valuable
out.
player. Yeah. It'll be an interesting topic to bring up again in the next 2 weeks, depending on how these teams go. But yeah, man, I'm excited. I'm happy right now. I have no complaints about the Niners other than the things we talked about. And
Literally, all we're complaining about is like, yo, can you rest our starters a little bit more?
yeah,
That's all we're saying.
Just give me a rotation. you
Yeah,
know?
and like, could you figure out how to run the ball a little bit more consistently?
Yeah, up the middle to the
And then,
left.
but Kyle's saying, nah,
Nah.
I'm gonna bomb it out.
Yeah, he's
I'm
playing
like, okay,
Madden.
Kyle. All right,
All right.
just play with our feelings like this. But ladies and gentlemen, they thems. This is the Bad Samaritan podcast. We will see you all again next week. You have a good weekend.
It was a pleasure. Peace.